A sack of potatoes, one bag of potatoes. A sack of potatoes, one bag of potatoes. A sack of potatoes, one bag of potatoes.
We have the favorite clown, the worst politician that drove down his party to the ground. He literally destroyed his party in the last election. Here we are talking about Canadian politics once again. We will talk about censorship in Canada with Bill C8 and C9. I've selected mostly C8 stuff, but also like C9 and a bit of C63, which was a bill that got destroyed several times. And for the Canadian out there that heard about C2 draconian and police state like law that was about opening mail without a warrant, literally. Well, that bill got destroyed. It got deleted by the opposition because the opposition were like, yeah, it's not passing through. It's disgusting. So they kind of forced the party, the so called liberal, to rewrite a new bill because C2 was too draconian. So we are lucky we have a strong opposition and we are not yet a police state. I say yet because there are rumors we may have a snap election soon, and I'm scared. I'm very scared. I don't want to move, but maybe I will be forced into moving elsewhere because it's scary. It's scary. If these liberals get a majority with the kind of bills they try to push through,
Really?
that's bad. That's bad. So that was a very long intro. How are you, Dragon?
I'm good. Took a little bit, but takes strangely enough, despite my own efforts, that I don't think I'm doing anything. But despite some setbacks to the degree, move forward. So
I must say this. We are diving deep into these two laws through three different videos today. For those who have not seen the first part, the first part is in the description below. So feel free to just go watch the first part. It was a 3 hour and like 37 minute stream, and
you act like that's terrible and painful. That's just a normal Sunday afternoon for me, sir. That's just normal.
I
But
feel you.
no, but see, you're just no. I mean, if you're not into long form, I do. I'm used to long form stuff, so long form stuff has always been my outside of gaming is bread and butter. So a lot of my commentary streams, like especially when it comes to politics, is an easy 3.5 hours.
That was the biggest I did about politics, and that's something.
So see, here's the thing. That's a lot of it's because look, half of it is I did my thing on why the left imploded. I had to take about the Charlie Kirk assassination. I had to take about a month's worth of stuff and go over it. I have to break it up into another part for Sunday. So it's all fun, but yeah, no, you're when you talk about censorship, right? So the idea itself is yes, you can say, oh, you can't just open a mail, or I mean, you're not quite at the point where you can just say, oh, Bill over there is a person. Now, I mean, parts of Canada are pretty tilted towards what you call authoritarianism.
Yeah, this is exactly what they
So
are.
the idea, right, goes back to the idea of, let's say, you're not quite end stage liberalism, but you're not out of end stage liberalism.
As long as we don't vote them out, as long as we have the same so-called liberals in charge, we are in
Really?
danger. We need like
Well,
to kick their butt out and teach them it doesn't go here. We
So
are not the
okay,
UK.
no. Here's the thing: you have 4 different flavors of liberal parties. Okay, one mainly deals with Quebec, right? The Indian guy was too stupid. His party like that. That's like that. You have one section which is your conservatives, which are like moderate Republicans does, or
Yeah.
social conservatives. So you have, in reality, a parliament made up of 4 types of liberals. One can only represent Quebec, which is probably to their own detriment, but their message doesn't get out. The rest are liberals that lean that way.
And even the ones that represent Quebec, I really looked into it, and the more I think about it, the more I'm like, that's a good thing they exist because they split the NDP and the liberal vote. Because even like as a province, we never had a conservative government in history since we exist as a province. Like the closest thing we had to a conservative government was in the last 8-ish years with La CAQ, but even them, they were like center left. And they had some of the policies from the right, but like it, they were like really small and not that numbers. Like it's really center left. And again, like the most thing we had from the right with them was um, the schools, but even there, um, so that's what happened, and now they are really dipping, like they are sinking, and in the next election in Quebec, we will have probably the bloc in charge, and I think if they are very smart, they will push for a referendum because like the last time they went in power was in the early 2000 and they almost collapsed within Quebec. That's the most hilarious part. And they just came back really strong, so they need to be clever. They need to really push for a referendum. And again, my entire life I didn't give a crap. I'm more a Canadian than a Quebecer, but after seeing the kind of crap the freaking liberals are pushing for, I want out. Anything is better than communism, and this is exactly what's going on. So that's the
See,
segue.
you act. See, there's a big difference. The problem is, I said, in stage liberalism always devolves into some form of something.
Yeah,
Like it's kind of like the theory, all democracies or conservative powers usually go back to a strong leader like a king. Some could say it could link to monarchism, but that's a very far because it never really works in the US. We do have people who appear as strongmen, but our
yeah.
government is not set up to have a king in any fashion. And even if, we always question our leaders. But the problem with like liberals, like way Canada works, is you guys still have, I'm not gonna say it, you'll need an entire, it's not that you just need elections. You need an entire gen
Overall,
no, you need an entire generation flip.
yeah.
See, the problem in the US, what makes it hard for liberals to gain 100% control, even if you look in the last between hypothetically years of Obama to about Biden and etc., even though you had like really Biden's administration was Obama's third term because he had the same advisors.
But you guys value so much more freedom.
Oh, you.
Like, as a fact, like your charter is far more sacred than ours.
Well, we have more. It's one of the few things that's ingrained. I mean, you have.
You want freedom.
Well, the thing is, what?
We don't.
What do you expect? Okay.
I like it. That's what I'm saying.
The core part.
I'm more an American than a Canadian.
See, the
That's
thing
the
is,
point I am
more
at right now.
Americans you have to understand. I'm more of a Texan than I am an American. The thing is, America was founded upon, in reality, rebellion, which therefore even the founding fathers understood that. The idea is we have parts of the country, right, that at some point or another, like let's say prior to Obama's election, socialistic leaning people were mainly in Chicago and parts of the Rust Belt, Detroit and Chicago. After that, they spread out through. Yes, we can have areas like San Francisco because our cities are notoriously liberal. Like in Texas, an example, our cities are, for the most part, controlled by Democrats. Major cities, rural areas are conservative. Now, in reality, you flip it for Canadians-ish, you find Americans also have this weird thing in a section or another, questioning authority, which
We
so
don't. We
you
the
have
people
the
the people here in Canada that question the authority, they're called conspirationists. This is exactly what's going on. This is how brainwashed people are here,
oh
and this is why I'm so tired of it.
no the
People are
problem.
just stupid.
See, no, you have had a population that at some point see, indoctrination works two ways. Why could the Soviets never topple the U.S.? This is the Soviets before the Russians. Americans had too much of a sense of pride and national identity. Now, give or take a generation or two under the hippies that were radicalized in the 60s, they did a little bit of damage to that. Like Portland and Seattle as examples. Those are pretty firm Democrat areas now. Like, basically like parts of California, not as a whole, but Southern California. You have states that are like Colorado when they legalized medical marijuana. It turned it from a purple state over time to a permanent blue state. But then those people moved to another state. So yes, technically at all times, the liberal position in the U.S. by far is always stronger than the conservatives. But most liberals and conservatives make up the electorate only a smaller part. So technically it's like 20-20-10 being like Antifa, radical, 10% to 15% were progressive. The rest of the 50% are independent libertarians with leanings to either the left or the right. So give or take, our people, it's not that we have a weird way of balancing it out. So like if Republicans stay in charge too long, we have this tendency to kick them out. Because at some point, when you have a voting record, you're held reliable for it. So, for the
The
most part, it's holding. Okay.
the other big issue with Canada, all Parliament is it's with density of population, and they make sure the most liberal province are the one with the most immigrants. So that means Quebec and Ontario, they have the most seats. Like by themselves, they can make a freaking majority parliament, and that's utter disgust because these two provinces are heavily liberal. Like Ontario, it's not as bad as Quebec because again, Ontario they had the conservative and the liberals back and forth in their province, but like Quebec is a nightmare for the conservative. It's like the worst place for them, and it's unfortunate because again, we are so brainwashed here. Quebec is the worst part. So now that's the segue to
So-
really talk about
Let me say this
C8
though:
and
you
C9.
talk about we do have an electoral college too, because
Yeah,
people.
I've heard about it, but now let's get back to C8 and C9 because we talked about USA a bit enough. So C8 and C9, we talked about it last week. What do you remember about these two laws?
I mean, I kind of read them over. I
No,
mean,
you don't need to read them. Just what do you remember from what we talked about?
no, I said, well, so one's more of a clarification. C8 has more of the other. You had the other one. So one's more of your clarification of terms of hate speech. The other one is your C8 bill is a little bit longer on what's allowed to be done, which parts of it are well meaning, but you do have some language in it that's, I would say, troublesome.
And
Because,
I will get into the troublesome right now. I think it's the perfect moment. I think C8, the most dangerous part is it takes away the need of a warrant in the court, and the government can basically shut down your internet and phone service, and the provider, they are not authorized to tell you why and how, and you're basically blacklisted. So if the government thinks you are a dissent voice and you are dangerous to the establishment, they will turn off your phone, they will turn off your internet. And because there's no warrant, there's no paper trail to follow up to, you can't do anything except like cry and maybe hang yourself, with like the game with the words, or maybe move to a non-fascist country, like the USA.
I
um,
mean, you're talking, you're literally, so, okay. In a post, in an in-stage liberal society, the political powers that be always resort to some form of, whether it be any kind of, so authoritarians always collectivize power. It sounds weird, but they'll always collect power inside of a central body, whether it's totalitarian or that. Now, how you deal with dissenters is two different things. What C8 does say is, without the more problematic part is you cannot be told why you are, because technically in the US we have a no-fly list. Your name is put on a no-fly list, you're SOL. That's if, ands, or buts. If you're deemed a terrorist or a supporter of terrorists, the government has full rights to either investigate you, wiretap you, do whatever else. But luckily enough, we have a system that you have to clarify that.
and we
What?
don't, because the liberals are not so liberals anymore over here.
No, the thing is, in-stage liberalism always devolves into totalitarianism or authoritarianism. Basically, your central body, hypothetically speaking, Quebec, people moved to Quebec because two reasons. It reflects their values, but at the same time, that was a business center for you. But those people over time like that style of government. Maybe their kids do, unless you have a generational shift, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it
That's where
does.
you guys are, because what saves America, strangely enough, is you can have a very radical parents or grandparents, but there's always a guarantee that whether people are from a conservative family or a liberal family, someone flips.
And there's also another thing about you guys. You have Fox and whatever is the left leaning
Or we just have mostly
network.
internet. Well, we have Fox News, yes.
You have like two different network that have very different political leanings. And us here in Canada, you look at every mainstream media that's funded by the liberals, because that's really them that funds them. Well, they're all left leaning because that's their boss. That's the true issue there. But to get back to C8 and C9, so C8 want to disconnect you, and C9 wants to jail you for life. So you will have a digital prison and a physical prison if these two laws they pass. And it's disgusting. It's awful. But hey, this is late stage libertarian, like you said.
Late stage. It's in stage. Everyone talks about in stage capitalism. In stage liberalism is a very different take.
Yeah.
Now here's the thing. A lot of what it is why they want this power.
Because they want to control you. As simple as that.
That's part of it.
They want to silence dissent. And we will turn like the UK. So this is the premise of what's going on. Let's pull up some of the things we will react to with the first clip.
There. Today I want to talk to you about Mark Carney's censorship agenda and why we should all be a little bit worried about his obsession with England. Mark Carney's pretty famous, or infamous, I guess, depending on your perspective, for his sort of Anglophile love of the UK. His time in England was a very high-profile chapter of his career. I'll explain a little bit more about that later. But now Mark Carney, who sort of actually famously brought some corporate North American traditions to the UK, is now bringing UK traditions to Canada. And the tradition that we should be most concerned about is the UK's tradition of censorship. If you have not been paying attention to what is going on in the UK, they have become something of a poster child for censorship among Western liberal democracies.
And I will say that they are cooked. They are done. I've read they became worse than Russia. This is the UK. This is what the Marxist Carney wants to push. This is what he wants to bring here. It's so disgusting. It's awful. Now I've seen studies like in the UK, 30% every day are jailed for what they say. It's insane to call them a democracy, but hey, they pretend to be one, right? They pretend to be one.
I mean,
it's so awful.
The problem, no. UK has also had that as well. They invented PC culture years ago.
They're crazy.
Okay, so here's the thing. Europe always, let's say every 20, 30 years, always goes from either a cycle of conservatism to liberalism on a scale of governments every 20 to 30 years. Somewhere in that fashion, they always align. The British under the UK, not mainly the rest of the UK, parts of the UK, you had an entire generation of people raised under politically correct culture that spread through the world. That is the precursor to a lot of programs like DEI, equality programs, things of that nature, policing language. That started modern times in the 90s in the UK. Basically, but they've also had the weirdest morality laws in place for 30 or 40 years. If, and hypothetically, they want to ban adult material or do something, they have a morality law for it.
Wow.
They have been not just the poster child. Let's assume, hypothetically, you wanted to ban OnlyFans. They already have illicit behavior laws upon the books to do it. Now, the question is like us in the U.S. We have an immigration law. Do we enforce it? So, over there, but you have an entire generation, parts of the people, the schools, they all have been raised under a liberal or socialistic leaning governments with as well as politically correct culture. They don't see it. It's an entire indoctrination system. Now, Canada
Just
has...
like Quebec. Quebec is like that.
Here's the thing. Canada has the same things going on to a degree. It's not that you don't... Some question it. Like even, let's say, Sargon. Sargon started off as a liberal. And he's suddenly landing as a form of conservative, but not quite a conservative by chance, but he's there. But you got to understand, UK has good parts to it, but it also has parts where they let themselves get to where they are.
Is the good part the one that did the Brexit and that left because they were insane?
Well, okay. Technically, that's when you're getting into the EU. It's like the party that pushed. So the party that actually pushed for it, they separated mainly from the EU because Europe is really 3 governments. Okay?
Wow, I didn't know that.
They're really 3 governments.
That's crazy.
National, Brussels. You have another organization, and then you got the European Union. All right? There's another
That's
one.
crazy.
You have 3. Europe has been the model for the one world government for a very long time. Quintessentially, you have to tell a Frenchman they're equivalent to a German. You have to tell an Italian they are equivalent to a Frenchman and a German. Now, not to bore you with the history of it, Soros and other people have tried for years to buck the system that you can have it. Now, the EU has been a social experiment. Now, what broke them is when the Syrian crisis came in, they go, you need to be humanitarian and take in all these people. Most of them didn't have documentation. Like, prime example, if you need documentation and photo ID, they don't have one except what they came in with. And they destroyed all their others. Now, UK still has European tendencies or people with that. But they separated when they didn't want to take in more migrants. But they early on took in Albanians and some others, which led to some conflicts. And it's not like Pakistanis or Indians naturally migrate there anyways, because anyone who's in the colonies, so to speak, always goes back there. So they always had the Indian population that ebbed and flowed. The problem is when they took in the others. Germany saw spikes in radical attacks, people going Allah Akbar on trains. Eventually, they wanted separate, due from the economy and from the other parts.
It's kind of funny. Due to the economy, I see parallel with Alberta being disrespected and being pushed down the side, and our economy is suffering, and them being pissed in all of that and wanting to separate. And I see a common denominator, if we can call it that way, Carney was in the UK around Brexit, and now he is around Canada when Alberta sees a spike. And if you look at history, Alberta always had that desire when we had lots of liberal regime in a row, like right now. But I've never seen that movement so high. And when you really ask people around, it's really the highest it has ever been in the past, with the people wanting independence
I
and
don't think you.
Alberta wanting to
That's the
separate.
thing. I don't think it's going to happen because Canada largely, what you have basically 3 areas, maybe people live 4.
Oh, you could be surprised. Like, most people are in British Columbia, Alberta, and Quebec and Ontario. These are the 4 biggest province. We got
That's the
Saskatchewan, that's like a medium-sized province. We got Manitoba, also a medium size, and we got the smaller ones, PI, Newfoundland. We got territories that are very very small, and we got, there's another one I forgot.
well. I mean, let's say you take Quebec for years. Quebec was the first to fall to liberal policies or the gay, homosexual like stuff years ago, and whatever was liberal trending. I
Yeah,
remember years ago.
that's true.
Not that I ever had an issue with Canadians, jokes aside. I always had issues with Quebecers because they always were terrible people at park sections. I go, oh, persons are Quebec, and like they would just be rude to the rest of the world. I'm like, and you wonder why. Um, and this was years ago. We would game with them. I'm like, the idea is like, I remember them being just a bunch of, like, you could see the beginnings of it in early 2000s. I'm just like,
But the big thing with Quebec, we speak French mostly, and we are the biggest French speaking province in Canada. Like Ontario, they are bilingual very much because they know how much Quebec gives them power within Canada, so they can honor that this way. But the moment you leave Quebec and Ontario block, um, the more you go in any other province or territory, like there's some French depending where, but it's always English, English, English. And
well,
again,
that's one thing I.
Ontario doesn't really have a choice because they know if they drop French, Quebecer will hate them and they will lose grasp of power.
Now, here's something you got to consider. That's why I said you got like 4 big provinces that are either populated or make money.
Yeah,
Again, think in the U.S.
Alberta is the biggest earning one. That's the most hilarious
But
part.
it would you say Quebec is one of the biggest commercial earning ones?
No. I will say like the biggest one is Alberta for sure. Then the second one would probably be Ontario. It's bigger than
Ontario,
Quebec.
yes, because what that Ontario, I think.
Just in size, it has so much
Well,
people
no, not just the
there.
territory, right? So you have
No, in
mining.
size of density, like they are 16 million, while Quebec is 8 million, Alberta is 5 million, and uh,
What
BC is 5 million.
what provinces effectively earn the most is what I mean. Like what?
I'm pretty sure it's either Ontario or Quebec, but Alberta is not that far behind because Alberta are the ones that have the biggest space, and they have the most resources, but the liberals keep with their free green agenda. They keep doing stupid traps, so that
Well,
really
no, mining
hurt
is
Alberta.
naturally no, naturally people don't like. I'm gonna be very honest. The first thing, if you have an environmental policy as a platform, so like parts of the U.S. as an example, we sacrificed our manufacturing and mining. Stuff
With
like
Carney in charge, we sacrifice everything. All
no.
he works for is his stupid assets.
So here's the thing: when you talk about areas, when I say what areas make money, commercial.
I'd really say Alberta. Like, when you look at numbers, Ontario, yes, because this is where Parliament is and they have a lot more people. But, like, Alberta is one of the top earners.
So, like, when you caught culture, I remember years ago, people would joke about carving off, basically, Ontario into the sea and let them die, like we say about California.
Yeah, that'd be great. Let them be their own country.
Jokes
Let
aside.
Canada be the rest of Ontario.
Okay, so I guess this is according to per capita 2023 on Wikipedia. Alberta. Okay, so Ontario is 1.19 million.
And I'd say at least half of it is all people working in office for the government to some extent.
Quebec is all at 579.
It's similar
Now,
numbers.
Alberta is 542. British Columbia is 409. This is according to that. Now, I guess international, you're saying how it breaks down goes Ontario, Quebec, Alberta, British Columbia.
Yeah.
That's good GDP, PPP ratio. So that's in 23. So
Well, it got down, man. Like, it got down. And the only one that's really survived is Alberta because they manage money so much better than freaking Quebec and Ontario. Anyhow, we barely moved around that video. Let's play more of it.
Now, the Carney government has proposed some laws that emulate some of the worst parts of the UK's censorship pattern.
I agree.
I can't wait to tell you all about it. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Christine, and I am the litigation director for the Canadian Constitution Foundation, a legal charity that fights for fundamental freedoms in Canada. I upload regular videos about our ongoing legal cases and about other interesting developments in constitutional law in Canada. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, please hit like and subscribe below. It really helps my videos out a lot by boosting videos like this in the YouTube algorithm. So please subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment, and let me know what you think. So as I said, Mark Carney has had a high profile career with a big part of it in England. He was the first non-Briton to serve as the governor of the Bank of England, where his term spanned from 2013 to 2020. And his time in London.
And I will say this, he should have stayed there. If he likes it so much, why did he keep bringing all of the crap from there here in Canada?
globalism.
I hate it. Yeah, F him.
No, he's a globalist.
You know, it wasn't just
I hate
famous
him
for
so
monetary policy. He actually became a bit of a character in the British press. You know, he and his family lived in this £5 million home in South Hampstead, which, you know, the tabloids were just delighted to report on. His salary of around £880,000 a year with allowances made a lot of headlines as well, because a lot of critics said that he was overpaid compared to previous governors of the Bank of England. Some critics complained that he overextended his role by speaking on issues beyond monetary policy, for example, Brexit, climate change, inequality. He was called a rock star banker, and he was compared to the previous gray-suited, understated previous Bank of England governors. And in contrast, his personality stood out. He was portrayed as bringing a North American, more informal style to this very traditional British institution, which had previously been seen as stuffy, hierarchical, and very English in its sort of cultural trappings. And he introduced a more international corporate style of management. So he did bring North American traditions to the UK. And now that he's Prime Minister of Canada, he is doing the same thing. He's bringing UK traditions to Canada. The National Post has reported that the new Prime Minister's office expects all documents to use British spelling, and staff are expected to dress in formal business attire. Now,
He is so like I don't know how to say it or how to frame it, but that sounds so condescending. Like we shouldn't be Canadian anymore. We should be like more like these tyrant over there that jail you for speaking out. And I just hate that attitude based on that. And I don't know how accurate she is on that, but let's say I take it as a grain of salt. But if that happens to be true, if this is really what's going on, um Carney, what are you doing here? Go back in
I
the
mean, what?
UK.
You guys have always been, you think every member nation under the crown is always subject under the cultures of it. So, by the way, him as prime minister wanting a dress code, I'm going to tell you
That's actually okay. That dress
I'm
code
not going to
aspect, I'm
tell
okay with it.
you that that's look.
But the Britain letter and spelling, it's hilarious. I'm like,
Now
why?
that's just weird. Like I understand, like, oh, you have a code of conduct for your office staff.
He misses so much England. I'm telling you.
He was in Canada first.
Yeah, but he still misses these tyrant there. That's why he wants to bring their manner here.
anecdotally, I have been told that this means men are to wear black shoes only, which is a very British interpretation of formal business attire. In North America, formal business attire includes brown shoes for men, but it is so standard in London, in the financial and political circles of the city, that you do not wear brown shoes if you're in those fields. They even have an expression in London, which is never wear brown in town. So, these are some sort of superficial admirations for the UK.
That's one
but
of the word I was thinking about. That sounds so superficial. Right in European or British. That's what I was searching for. Right in British spelling. It's so superficial. It's like, buddy, why so much into just looking nice and being so impressive and being so like,
I mean, dress
let's put out the show.
professional. No, look, dress professional, right? Look at your people before Parliament. You want people who suit and you don't want people going to the office. Like, I think even our Congress has a dress code. Like, our Congress has that. You can't just go through Congress and just go, oh, I'm going to come in a cargo pants or something and come into work. No, that's like there's like honestly the black shoes thing is kind of a
That's
I
a
mean,
bit extreme.
no, but bear in mind, Carney was a banker prior. So if you come from a financial institution, you go, oh, or let's say a law, you're going to dress a certain way. Now, I mean, let's be clear. If you want to wear another shoes, dress shoes, I don't know if you've ever worn them. Black or brown is either way. But formal, suit and tie, along with that, sure. Now,
Mark Carney.
Sorry, I will say the Queen's English thing. That's a little bit special. But you are a
That's
nation.
Carney. You want to put on a show like this week. He had that statement about how not corrupt our FBI like cops are because they didn't send in jail someone that should have been sent in jail for doing several crime. But no, they are not corrupt, and it was just standing up in front of like I think 50 members of our FBI, and I'm like, why are we wasting money for just them to stand there when there's crime rampant in Canada? Like, it was all to be impressive and to have a big show of nothing. It's like a smoke screen. It's like he wants to make everything bigger than what it should be. It's ridiculous. I just cannot stand Carney. Like, he thinks he's Trump, he thinks he's some kind of big shot, but he's a joke on the world stage. Nobody takes him
I don't think
seriously.
that. I think, honestly, if anything, I think he's trying to. It's not.
No, he is a narcissist. I'm telling
No,
you.
I'm
This
not saying
really
he's
is.
not a narcissist. What I'm saying is, it's not that he's trying to. First rule of basically government or being in power.
Be scary like Trump.
No, it's not that. But seriously, it's the first rule. Appearances. Appearances is the first.
But how does he look so weak? Like, on the world stage, he is a joke. Like, when Trump was signing some kind of deal, a peace treaty or something, we just have Carney big all disappointed and mad in his corner, like crying.
Well, when he comes to the U.S., he's subject to whatever we have here. It's not
Yeah,
like it's.
but
not
what
like,
I'm saying is he's a weak individual that lets himself being steamrolled, and nobody takes him seriously. Like, he went in Mexico and he got turned back. Like, Mexico was like, we don't want your money, we don't want your deal. We just want to deal with the states. And Carney just came back here and it was like,
actually, the Mexican deal was a little bit weird, but no, like Carney up there at home. The thing at home, no matter what they teach you in politics, is image. Image and appearance. So, regardless, every time you look at a debate or something happening like your thing, it's always posturing or making yourself, regardless of it, they make themselves look strong. Because liberals could have a gaping, bleeding wound, ideally, not be able to win elections, but polls could be not in their favor. But if they project the right power, not because they're media or people who cover them, projecting power gives you some protection. Now, where does projecting power fail? Projecting power fails when your policies and what you're saying happens to not be true. So if Carney is saying, let's hypothetically assume this, the budget comes out, debt's rampant, and it's going to cause a collapse of the economy. He can't say shit about wanting to be profitable. He has, no matter about a spend.
it was The Economist. He was saying, I'm here to save you from the crisis.
Well, no. During the election, the reason why he looked better than the rest of the liberals is because he could put on a show better. Now, Polyev can do the same thing. But can you poke holes in that position of power? Now, the thing about it is Carney still scared of the economy faltering? No. But when he goes out to the rest of the world, he is still treated as Canadian's prime minister. Now, at home, can he be a little bit of a laughing stock among your side of the internet? But amongst the liberals, be seen as that? Now, if it comes out...
I know the liberals still root for him because they don't see how bad he is.
Either that or they have to. And you talk about using a show of force, right?
Yeah.
with like maybe that's a policy position. Because he is what, by the end of this month, supposed to have the budget out?
By November 4th.
Oh, wait.
That's if he doesn't create a snap election, and I've heard a lot of rumors, and I'm kind of scared of that a lot, because we didn't get enough time for him to show the swing voters how bad he is. That's what's going on. That's what scares me.
Well, when Polyev couldn't prove it, you had 2 months. You don't have anything concrete to lean on.
Like a lot of polls, but again, these are just polls. A lot of polls are telling us we have maybe a conservative minority, but other polls are still showing the liberals kind of strong enough to form government regardless. So I don't know. Depends where you look at, and depends on the campaign. And I won't bet on the campaign with the conservative, even if I agree a lot more with the conservative. They prove time and time they don't know how to campaign. They just suck at it. That's why they can't get.
Well, it's
elected,
also poll
unfortunately.
numbers too are hard to believe, even in the U.S., because every poll leads towards something. So, and one thing I'll hear too before you let her continue, the idea that Carney was originally from Canada as a financial person. If you work there and then he went to the UK, which you still have that. Now, by the way, Carney isn't alone in the being the governor bank of England. He did have, I mean, a lot can be said about UK fiscal policy being good or bad over the years. But in reality, everywhere you're in power, you're always going to bring those traditions with you. In the U.S., even though Carney was there, the British still ruled as they always have. I think there was the current governor of Bank England has weird stuff going on too. So, yeah. You continue. So, give you an idea.
Admiration for the UK goes a lot deeper than dress codes. As I said, in recent years, Britain has become this poster child for political censorship. The Free Speech Union reports that police make 30 arrests per day, which is 12,000 per year, for offensive online messages. Laws like the Communications Act 2003 and the Public Order Act 1986 have been wielded to silence jokes and political debate. Very famously, this September, comedy writer Graham Linham was arrested at Heathrow Airport on suspicion of violating the Public Order Act 1986 for inciting violence.
So what did I tell you?
He's a comedy writer. He wrote sitcom Father Ted. He posted some jokes on X about transgender issues, and now he's been arrested for inciting violence. That is not the only time jokes have led to arrests in the UK. In 2010, there was this very famous incident in the UK where a man named Paul Chambers tweeted a joke about a flight he was supposed to be on that was canceled. And he said he was so angry he was going to blow the airport sky high. It was a joke. But he was convicted of sending a menacing communication under the Communications Act 2003. After years of appeals, the High Court finally quashed that conviction of Mr. Chambers in 2012. But there are endless examples. For example, in 2018, a Liverpool teenager posted lyrics from a rap song on Instagram that included the N-word. She was prosecuted and given a community order for posting grossly offensive content, even though her conviction ultimately was overturned on appeal. In 2019, a man named Harry Miller, who was a former police officer, posted and liked tweets critical of gender ideology. Police recorded his activity as a non-crime hate incident and visited him at work. He ultimately challenged it in court and won, and the police's actions were deemed to be a disproportionate interference with free expression. Now, these non-crime hate incidents are very, very troubling. Thousands of incidents that are not criminal have been recorded by police in England and Wales, where the speech was deemed hateful and where
It's
no crime
ridiculous.
is even
That's a
required.
circus.
So a
That's a
mean
joke.
tweet in the UK can
Bad
result
taste
in a
joke.
police knock on your door and a permanent record accessible by certain employers. And the result is tweets have been logged from journalists. Teenage Snapchat spats have been recorded, and it is almost routine for reports of political and social commentary to be logged as non-crime hate incidents. If you want to learn more about how bad things have got in the UK, I
No
recommend
wonder
visiting the website
crime
from the
is on the
UK's
rise
Free Speech
over there.
Union.
They are more
They are
occupied
taking these issues
arresting
head on, and
people
they're
for
doing a
meme
great
than
job.
for actual
It is very
crimes.
disturbing, and it is very clear that the UK is well down the wrong path. And I think we should be concerned that Prime Minister Mark Carney is following them. You know, his love and admiration for
That's why I'm
England
so scared.
seems to include
Let
this
them stumble
culture
and
of
break their
censorship.
face on the
On
ground
September
before a new
19th,
election.
his government, the Carney federal government, tabled a Bill C9, which is called the Combating Hate Act. It makes 5 changes to the criminal code. Each one is troubling for free expression. So first, C9 repeals the requirement that provincial attorneys general consent to hate propaganda charges.
And this is a safeguard because that figure that gets removed is not attached or linked to any political party. So that means this is a apolitical figure, which is essential because it proves that if you speak out about the government and say the government is stupid, then that person is like, you know what? It's not really hatred. It's more like you don't like that institution. So it's a safeguard. And also, he is a filter for all of these people that are like, you know what? That person said something stupid, like on the internet, like, you're stupid. Can we take that seriously? No. That's why we got that provincial attorney general. It's a safeguard to make sure people are not getting abused or jailed for nonsense, which is exactly what's going on in the UK.
Police can now charge on their own. And that safeguard really mattered because hate offenses are vague, subjective, and they're prone to misunderstanding and abuse. And charges are serious even if they are later dropped. And now that important guardrail that was supposed to rein in the police is now going to be removed. So we can expect to see more kinds of conduct like what we are seeing in the UK. Second, Bill C9 criminalizes willfully promoting hatred by displaying certain symbols in public. This is a form of censorship. You know, every year there's some media report about a local crank, some fringe person who has put a swastika on his porch. Every year we are reminded in these reports that this symbol is not illegal, although it is obviously worthy of social condemnation. It has been very socially useful, though, to know who the local Nazis are.
And I agree with that. And I will also mention that if you start banning symbols, what if someone really extreme is like, you know what? We will extend that amendment to the law and say anything I don't like turn into a hate symbol. This is a big risk. This is a very dangerous. It's a slippery slope. You do not grant more power to government. They got way too much here in Canada. It's a joke. Let's keep going with that.
Allows us all to see who the extremists are and reject them openly. Forcing symbols underground, even hateful symbols, will only empower them, and it will actually fuel polarization. You know, foolish, racist, and repugnant opinions should be exposed openly and ridiculed. They should not be given power. And Canadians are not made safer if we don't know what people actually think. It's better for us to know who the radicals are so that we can condemn them and stay away from them. Now, today's bill, C9, it lists swastikas specifically, and it also would prohibit listed terrorist symbols, which is a list created by regulation by the government, and the government decides who goes on that list. Now, during right
That
now
goes back to
it's
what I
all
said.
extremist
Don't give them
groups,
too much power.
and the problem is during the technical briefing, one of the first questions that was asked is why these terrorist groups, why the swastika but not the Confederate flag. That was an example given specifically. And I think once you start going down this path, you don't really know where it's going to end, and you're going to end up with many, many symbols banned, prohibited. People with quite normal opinions could see charges leveled against them, even if many of us might sympathize with the desire to ban symbols like the swastika. We're actually better off knowing who these people are so that we can ridicule them and say and tell our children stay away from people like this. Another thing that C9 does is it creates a standalone hate crime offense. So if any crime is motivated by hatred, it becomes not just a sentencing factor, but a separate offense carrying up to life in prison, depending on what the offense committed was. And life in jail for speech should really shock Canadians.
It's China-like. It's exactly what's going on in China. It's exactly what used to be going on in Russia. I don't know how they changed, but no LT democracy has that kind of things, and it's ridiculous. It's what will happen if this goes through? If someone, if I'm unlucky, if I don't have the luck, maybe someone goes into that stream here and tells the government, look, he hates you. Okay, jail him for life. It's ridiculous. It's utter disgust. Jailing someone for life for his opinion? It's the worst thing that can happen. Dragon, do you have anything to say, my fellow American? Dragon? Are you crying in your corner, Dragon? So I guess the dragon is out.
So fourth and fifth, C9 criminalizes intimidating or obstructing someone accessing a cultural or religious site. A lot of people said that Mark Carney was going to introduce bubble zones. You know, I actually thought he was going to introduce a bubble zone law as well. I have a video about that. It was part of his campaign promise. But when you look back, he actually didn't say bubble zone specifically. He talked about blockading and intimidating. You know, I actually don't have a problem with a law that prohibits blockading or intimidation. Those things are already illegal. I think we would have been better served.
So, Dragon, you back?
Yes.
Okay, so did you hear what she said about that C9 being as dangerous as it can rewind. It can send someone in jail for life. About speech.
Potentially, yes.
Any thoughts about it, my fellow American?
So here's the thing. Because the law says something doesn't mean it will happen.
Do you really think they won't use it against their political enemies?
I think you can always try because the law always has draconian wording. Like if you ever look at sentencing guidelines.
But there's also no safeguard anymore. The government just decide that. It's like, oh, I don't like you, jail. For life. It's nasty. Even China probably
They know.
something that
Okay. No. China is a different story. Look, China is notable for... So they make celebrities and they also destroy them, okay? They will promote somebody and then the Communist Party people go, oh, Jinlong or whatever is like basically popular. Next thing you know, they disappear. So the idea of it sounds weird, but
it doesn't. It's China.
That's a different type of regime. So there are people who are what you would call the quote unquote oligarch class, or they work with it, companies, they may not be members of the CCP, but they are beholden. They are either subject to accidents or they're subject to regulations. Now, in a worse part, they're hauled into mock trials publicly and thrown into prisons. Some, like, they'll go, oh, you're a billionaire, but you're going to have to go bike everywhere suddenly. And there's like a big show of, yeah, you're just going to be stripped or access to your money suddenly, but we're not going to kill you publicly, but we're just going to demote you to living middle class. So, again, China's a different place when you're talking culture and jailing people, because activists who are actual leaders or dissenters are either rounded up quietly and disposed of quite frequently. If you're deemed a whistleblower, they bury you or they do whatever. Hint the guy that, this goes without saying, the guy who, when at the Wuhan lab, one of the first people to get infected and die, basically he got infected. He tried to tell the government about the outbreak potential of it. After the lab outbreak in like September going into October, he was going to the public and going to whistleblow it. There's potentially a new virus around. New potential flu that turns out deadly, but not deadly, but came from there. China did have deaths from it as well, like the rest of the world. They just hid them. They took the guy, buried him underneath in a prison cell, and he wound up dying of COVID. So the idea is, if you get deemed misinformation, you don't see the light of day, or they bury it under whatever. I highly doubt the Canadian government has the same level of power. Now,
Wait for it.
you think so?
It's about to be aired.
No, you know what they do in the US, though, which is interesting? Or what they do in the US and in the UK is, hypothetically, so when corporations sue one another, like Apple versus Epic, right? Very big decision. That took millions of dollars in attorney's fees and basically went on for years. Then people eventually forgot about it.
Yeah.
Came to solid light of day. If something happens in our government, you'll hear a lawsuit is filed. Let's say a man is wrongfully killed by the police of any kind.
Yeah.
Right? The person sued, the family sues the city.
Yeah.
Likelihood there'll be a settlement after, like, oh shit, they fucked up.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to the federal government, the reason why you don't see a lot of lawsuits against the federal government in the US is because it is a lengthy litigation process. You can vindicate somebody, but those courts move at the speed of mud. So they can bog down the proceedings so much that a not wealthy person goes bankrupt, or they don't have the money for it.
We have very similar crap going on here.
So don't think there's no legal recourse. The problem is it's just how many hearings and can you do it? It's not like a lone person. The reason why you have class action lawsuits and different types of courts is because it allows stuff to be heard. Now, when the federal government screws up, and depending on the type of case, they can put a lot of stuff in the way of it, or when it's settled, by the time of it, even if it makes the federal government look like shit,
Yeah.
they can bury it so the person's free about it, but they can't talk about it.
Yeah. So let's play more of that.
If the police just enforced existing law rather than creating this new redundant law. But I do have some concerns that now
Yes,
that the
but
police have
redundant
this
laws
sort
are
of bonus
very
law,
common.
it might be
They're meant
enforced
to
sort of
shore up
arbitrarily,
something
or it
uncertain.
might be enforced incorrectly when people are not, in fact, blockading or intimidating. But, you know, my biggest concern is the other portions of the bill, not really this part. This is not even really a bubble zone. I think the most alarming part of C9, though, is that it waters down the definition of hatred. So C9 proposes a statutory definition of hatred. Previously, we only had common law definitions, so definitions created by the courts when they interpreted the law. So now we have a statutory definition being proposed, and it's actually a lower standard than what the courts had proposed. The new statutory definition Carney is proposing is hatred is the emotion that involves detestation or vilification and that is stronger than disdain or dislike. That is not the current state of the law. The leading cases on hate speech, which are the cases of Keegstra and Whatcott, in those cases, the Supreme Court stressed that an element of extremeness is essential, that hatred is the most extreme manifestation of those emotions. So this extremeness component is now removed, and the overall effect of this new proposed definition is that the threshold for prosecution is being deliberately lowered. So taken together, taking all these amendments together, the purpose of C9 to me seems very obvious. The goal is to generate more charges, more prosecutions, and more convictions for government unwanted speech. Now, some of this might sound familiar because some elements of this were in a previously introduced bill, Bill C-63. The symbol element is new. And I think the statutory definition is also different from what was proposed in C-63. C-63 was a very censorious law that even Trudeau gave up on. He ended up splitting the bill and abandoning the criminal portions of it. And that bill died when Parliament was prorogued. But this Carney bill brings back those criminal portions that, in fact, even Trudeau had abandoned. The other part of C-63 that the Trudeau government did want to proceed with had to do with the creation of a digital safety commission and creating duties on social media platforms to limit exposure to what the government calls harmful content. And it also required fast takedowns, obligations on platforms for certain kinds of content. Now, it looks like that portion may also be coming back. On September 25th, Minister Stephen Guilbeault told a parliamentary committee that the government is considering bringing it back or reviving some portions of C-63.
My guess, what they want to bring back is another draconian BS in C-63, which was if a neighbor is worried about extremism, and that was very vague in purpose, so anyone that doesn't agree with the government can be investigated on. So if the neighbor thinks you're an extreme, then you're arrested for house arrest because you're deemed a threat. It's retarded. It's China-like freaking
No,
BS.
you're talking about, okay, quote unquote.
It's like Minority Report, but with freaking opinions.
Okay, part of the problem with in-stage liberalism is you have an authoritarian or totalitarian regime with always a thing they do, and it's more notable amongst communism, Marxism, and stuff like that you have a society where you deem something quote unquote wrong think, quote unquote, and you have a ministry of quote in quotations truth guiding people, like, oh, there's no virus going around, there's this
I see people sick, but there's nothing to look at right now.
like, the thing about it is, that's what you have to worry about. The quote unquote ministry of truth or the propaganda are not the one that goes, oh, we need to cover this up temporarily so it's out of the news cycle. The problem is if you create a snitch network, and I get bet out of people's loyalty to the government, they would do it.
Yeah, and we would get like all of the right-leaning people in jail or with
You never
curfew.
know. I'll be very honest. You might, because as much as you think in the U.S. people talk about this, if you asked, and this has never been fully tested, but generally if it is tested, you always hear Trump's going to call out the National Guard or the military to take over federal cities or stuff like that and use the military against the people. In the U.S., we also have, yes, the military and apparatuses are legal. Respect that authority. But if Trump did, or a person, Democrat, liberal, ordered people to be suppressive and throw people in jail or use that force against people in a mass operation, you would have rebellion in your ranks.
Here in Canada, I'm sorry, but no, we had that with COVID and it didn't happen. We are just docile subject here in Canada.
So, but you're getting what I'm saying,
They're
right?
weighing whether
the
to
military would never
reintroduce or
turn arms on
redraft
other
parts of it.
Americans.
And
Or
based
turn
on the
them in.
public statements Guibault has made, it looks like the parts that are most likely for his department to bring back will be those obligations on platforms, social media companies, related to harmful content, which would include hate speech, as well as requirements for faster takedowns, which would
You already had that
could
under
create a chilling effect
prior,
on
was it
platforms.
C-19 a couple of years ago? You have already gone through the first stage of this. Let's assume your broadcasting companies.
That's C18, not 19.
Sorry,
but
C18.
you were close.
So the one last year, right? Or a couple of years ago?
Yeah, that's a couple of years ago.
They were like, oh, we're going to promote Canadian things.
But it's just censorship.
Okay, here's the thing. I remember one of the people I like watching is Mark Stein. Mark Stein is from Canada, but he's like British. I think he finally moved to the U.S. I haven't seen.
I love the pause. Look at her tongue.
So we will get you off the screen. It's a follow-up to last week. We still we still talk about C8 and C9, the very dangerous censorship laws, and this is the discussion right now.
Okay.
So
you're still talking about the C9, that one thing that you sent me. The bill or whatever. Yeah. Okay.
So the idea, right, is
the kids don't look at her face.
I was gonna say, but oh god,
what's that face? Why is her tongue out like that?
I don't know. But I guess we will play more of her because like
she has pretty hair.
I'm having PTSD.
There are also free speech implications in yet another Mark Carney bill, C8.
Okay, well,
C8
there's
is a cybersecurity.
That's our friend.
So, Orange Avenger, we talk about censorship because Canada is in a very dark path with a communist-like government that want to push us for really dangerous laws. We are lucky as of right now they have a minority, so that means as of right now there's a strong opposition that will most likely delete these really, really dangerous laws, but the sole fact it's being talked about right now is worrying.
Okay, so now I remember what I was supposed to say. So
okay.
The second half of C-18 was not the fact of it. So Mark Stein, clearly, he had worked largely in Canada Public Broadcasting Networks. Kind of like, Jordan Peterson. They tried to go after him, where they tried to say, oh, you're violating some tenets. Mark Stein was censored up there for a period in a similar fashion when he was trying to work for Canada Public Radio or had to work up there. Now, you had regulations prior to that. Now, C-18 was going to lock that down further. Now they're just building on C-18. So you're talking that your already public broadcasting system already had FCC style regulations. They're adding to it, Multi.
Yeah.
That's the trick. The problem is, while we still have public networks over here, but we still have a public broadcasting system as well. That's like PBS. That's nationwide.
Oh, I watched it's like you actually get quite a bit of channels. On my kids' dad uses the antenna TV. I did antenna TV, and you actually get quite a bit of channels.
Yeah, and I will also mention that because it was said a few minutes ago. This C9 is so dangerous, they can push up to life in prison for speaking out something the government didn't like. And again, the Attorney General, which is a safeguard for the people, is taken out of the process, which is really, really worrying, really, really bad, because we cannot pretend to be a democracy if we have that kind of draconian laws, and I'm scared now.
There's
you're even
rules
more
as
scary than these laws.
I know this is I got it at Goodwill, but it was for Beloved's package, so I guess people have sex with
bill. And it's not obviously a speech bill, but it includes several features that do interact with free expression in some concerning ways. We at the Canadian Constitution Foundation have warned that C8 would allow the minister to secretly cut off a person's phone or internet service via a ministerial order. This is a serious threat to civil liberties, including free speech. These orders could remain secret indefinitely. The minister would only have to submit an annual report to Parliament about how many orders.
Yeah, that would be.
No warrant! No warrant! So you
That's
cannot
crazy.
even you cannot even go to the court and say this is not justified. They're like, who are you? But I got caught off.
Gosh,
so you're like,
does it look like it's gonna get passed? Does it look like it's gonna get passed, or
as of right now, it's still in the first reading. So that means we will talk about it, they will amend it or delete it. And do you remember the bill I told you about, C2? That was basically a border bill where they would open your package without a warrant, and and they could investigate you like a true police state. That got destroyed and deleted to remain YouTube friendly. So like the opposition as of right now, they don't like what's going on, and they are very competent and really good. But nonetheless, as of right now, C8 and C9 are still existing, and they are just as bad as C2. Like, I don't understand what's the thought process of a liberal voter if he end up seeing C2 and being like, you know what, I'm for C2. Like, don't you have like functioning like brain cell?
No.
No. I don't know.
No,
It's
really.
crazy. It's crazy. So let's
She's
play
kinda
more of
pretty.
that.
What I
Hopefully,
can't. One of my glasses. What does her microphone say? I can't read it. What's her mic say? Can't read the mic. Some of
Mike.
my glasses. I broke my glasses. I tripped and fell and broke my
Oh,
glasses. So
oh.
what does her mic say though? It's really bothering me. What's on her mic? It's orange. I've
Uh,
never seen an orange one like
oh
that.
yeah, or Mike. Oh, or Mike.
Mhm.
The Canadian Constitution Foundation. So they are like
Oh, so she that's what it's supposed for?
they defend the Charter of Rights in Canada.
Okay. Okay. That's what-
Uh, and they inform people about laws and bills and that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And they are very important because
they're just a nicer version of the ACLU.
So they're on your side, is what you mean,
Yeah.
right?
Remain
They're
and
just
whether
the
they were
legal
reasonable,
version that's
but
less
not
assholes.
necessarily identify particular individuals or provide transparency. So, in the context of political dissent, we have cautioned that the government might abuse these types of powers under the pretext of securing telecom systems, for instance, by restricting communications of activists or critics that they say are attempting to manipulate systems. So, because telecom providers could be subject to orders or penalties, there's a risk that they might preemptively censor or restrict content to avoid legal liability. This is a classic example of a chilling effect, platforms over-filtering controversial but lawful speech. So we have explicitly at the CCF warned that the threat of secret orders to cut off individuals or degrade service could deter people from expressing dissent or criticism of government because of fear of losing connectivity. So all of this together, C9, C8, and the possible return of C63 show a comprehensive web of censorship laws being imported to Canada. It's
crazy.
one thing to wear black shoes and insist on including the U in color.
And C63, I don't know if I told you about that, but there was a awful, disgusting part where we enter. Yes, exactly, Orange Danger. Well, actually, the UK is bigger than us if we really talk about density, but
Oh, UK small.
well, as of right now, no. But this is what the liberals right now try to push for, and they really want it. But again, they are in a minority government, so as of right now, if the opposition does its job, they don't have enough seats to pass through legislation this way. But as of right now, we are safe. But for how long, I don't know. And again, we depend and we rely on the opposition being like, you know what, this is dangerous stuff. We don't want it. And yeah, to go back to C63, there was a segment where it's Minority Report style. Have you seen that movie?
Uh-huh.
They arrest people for crime they didn't commit yet.
That's
Well,
crazy.
C63 was the same idea with hate speech, and all they needed to do is like, oh, your neighbor thinks you're an extremist. We jail you, house arrest, or we jail you in literal jail cell. Because it could be dangerous because you don't think the same way the government does. And
Wow.
that bill was deleted twice, not once, twice. Each time it tries, and the opposition is like, you know what? We don't like it. Delete that. They
You're
try
thinking
to
the
bring it
problem.
back again, a third time. It's the third time they try to bring it
Okay,
back.
so if, just to give you an idea, if, and this is a big if, let's assume you go over CA and you just amend or hide. See, the thing about the UK has already had buggery laws, sodomy laws, all of this shit for years if they really wanted to crack down. They used to crack down on actually gay people because of indecency laws and anti-sodomy laws.
Yeah, they still have
This is
anti-sodomy
ridiculous.
laws here.
And they're still on the books, by the way.
Yeah.
And if you really, and so you're talking about when I said UK has, everyone thinks that they didn't have obscenity laws to regulate something for 20, 30 years. Oh, they have, and they do. They just file them away in blue laws like we do in the U.S. and pull them out when they need them.
Judge Red is cool. So this is the end of the first video we are covering tonight. We will go into the second one.
Bill proposes to let the government
It's loud. Oh, it's loud. Oh, I gotta turn it down. Holy shit.
I will tell you guys what this thing is about, and for the viewers, if they don't know about that, this is COMITEE. And what COMITEE is the process where they talk about the laws before they implement them, and it's like getting testimonies from the opposition, the people in power, and witnesses that can say good or bad things about the law and the bill to try to push to change aspect of the laws in the bill. And it's basically the democracy in work right now. They bring the law, they talk about the law, and there's a pushback, there's defense, and there are witnesses. Sometimes we don't really have that many witnesses, depends on which bill, but this is what we will get right now. And let's get into it.
secretly cut a Canadian's phone or internet service. Cabinet minister would have the power to issue the order, would prohibit that the existence of the order to cut that service
By the way, it recorded loud.
prohibit its revelation, and that the order even existed.
Buried within the so-called Strong Borders Act are sweeping new powers.
By the way, Strong Border is C2. It's being deleted. It's no longer a thing. They split it into two different bills. One of the two bills is C12, but C2 is no longer in effect. So that's probably a video that's might be 2 or 3 weeks old right now. That's why they still address it. But that was part of the very draconian and crazy stuff they were trying to do. And I will explain the Range Avenger really shortly what it was. They could open your mail without a warrant. They could place you under surveillance, and the provider would keep secrecy. So you wouldn't know cops are after you, and they wouldn't need to go by the court to get such power, and that's ridiculous. It goes against our charter. So lucky us, the opposition did its job. They deleted that bill. That law got split in two, and as of right now, they talk again about that C2 thing. And another really, really bad thing about C2, they wanted to criminalize cash because they want to control your money.
Aren't you guys already a paperless society?
Well,
What?
we can pay
You're already,
everything virtually, but we still have cash flowing around.
I think we gotta keep cash. I don't want everything to be virtual.
Yeah, me too. It's important.
Okay, so there's
it's independence.
So there's a in regulation, and this is happening even in the U.S. A lot of people in the, let's say EU. Arch talks about
The EU doesn't want.
No, Arch has talked about this for years.
Nickels
Parts
are
of large parts of
I-
Europe, a large part of Europe has already gone. Like
You're right, and they talk crap about ice. You're right. I like it.
So like in the EU, like in Norway, you still see paper money from time to time, but
Sure.
largely though, it is still it's kind of a paperless society where everything is done by debit card or stuff at a bank. So you have a digital way. Even in the US, we still print money,
No,
but we also
we're not doing pennies anymore. Did you know that? Pennies are done because it costs us more to make the pennies than it is to,
Well, to be honest, pennies, don't know.
So I
No,
guess
it
we will
is.
play more of that committee now.
Sorry.
to government agencies to demand internet subscriber data.
Then I get my pronoun pins.
For example, Section 487.0121 of the Criminal Code, the proposed section, would allow police and CSIS officers to demand customer information from any company providing public services, including banks, telecoms, and social media, on a mere suspicion without judicial authorization. Have I got that right?
Right.
With no requirement for privacy impact assessments before these laws or regulations are passed, and with the serious implications that they have on Canadians' privacy, isn't Parliament simply being asked to grant sweeping powers of surveillance to the government without a formal review by the body, by the commissioner that Canadians, that Parliament has asked to do that very thing?
This guy's garage.
Sorry, what's that?
That guy's garage.
Oh.
That's a
I would
joke.
like to start by welcoming
Okay.
Monsieur Philippe Dufresne, who is the Privacy Commissioner of Canada. Mr. Dufresne, I know you've been extremely busy lately, and I want to thank you for being with the committee this morning.
Well, good morning, Commissioner. I have questions for you about legislation Bill C-8. There have been a pretty broad chorus of voices that are concerned about the sweeping and secret powers that cabinet ministers would have over the internet access and telephone access for individual Canadians, the power to secret powers to seize private data without warrant and conceal those actions from the public. So would secret orders to disable an individual's telecommunications access be inconsistent with the principles of the Privacy Act, and if so, why, sir?
Thank you for the question. So in the last Parliament, I appeared on Bill C-26 and talked about some of these issues when legislation aims at giving more power to the state to protect infrastructure and to disable and to take certain steps. And
I will be honest, to protect infrastructure is great. My big issue with C8, you can aim it at citizen, at anybody you don't like.
I'm not
And
sure
you
what that
don't
means.
need
What
the
does that mean?
goddamn warrant.
What does protect infrastructure mean exactly? I don't know what that means.
Like, for example, I don't know, like, you in the US, you got the Pentagon.
Mm-hmm. So to protect that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm fine with
Okay.
that.
Okay,
Let's
I didn't know.
protect our hospitals here. Let's protect. We don't really have something like the Pentagon here. Like, let's protect our military bases. I'm fine with that. Like, let's protect our power grid. It's important. We should have that kind of stuff. But then you add freaking draconian BS about deplatforming citizen and people you consider a dangerous government, and it's not a temporary thing. It's a permanent thing where they won't even have a warrant, so they won't even be able to fight it in court, and no internet provider or phone service provider will provide service after that. It's just disgusting.
I mean,
We cannot defend this.
I mean, okay, you're talking about why I would say is, okay, the government has a right to protect its interests or what they deem as misinformation if it is harmful to a situation. Because it happens even as much as I am if the government has to. But now, the problem is you have to pay attention to the language used. What do they mean by facilities? Do they
That's
mean?
right.
Do they
Besides it's
mean?
harmful.
Do you mean the institutions?
We'll decide what's harmful. Well, the government, because they want more power.
Well, see,
Who in the
okay,
government, though?
okay, you still have like that lady who's a Canadian Constitution lady, like she clearly is part of what we call the ACLU in the United States. The ACLU is sometimes your best friend,
Yeah.
and also your worst enemy, because
Not here in Canada. Like usually they are invited into COMITEE. They are the most reliable guest and witness in COMITEE.
But they will also, I guarantee you, if it came down to it, they would basically litigate the fuck out of something to make something stupid and idiotic make sense. Because this is one of the biggest problems we have with like the ACLU and those type of people. They say, we're going to defend the Constitution. Okay. Come about years later, we're like, oh, that crap you were supposed to protect us? Oh, you're just upholding the state boot. Like if you're in the U.S., you'd be familiar with the Southern Poverty Law Center, basically.
But you see, if Orange Avenger, if you guys at the C8 they discuss about right now, whatever the guy that was canceled, he would have lost his phone service and his internet service. So
And that's all why. Yeah.
Yeah, that's draconian stuff. It's crazy. And they want that kind of power. I don't trust the government with that kind of power. It's just awful.
Well, the problem
As
is,
Commissioner,
Where's Canada?
So we talk about bills and laws right now, and C8 is basically a law that is being discussed right now. So it's not official, it's not in place, but it's being discussed in Parliament. And that bill basically gives the government really unlimited power to deplatform whoever they don't like. This is how crazy this is.
It's a potential for it, because the problem is, I'll say it, when me and Sorter went over the Online Safety Act, what the UK wanted to do, and they're still, by the way, going to push forward digital ID over their people's dead bodies. So have fun. Now, the thing about this ultimately actually is, it's a public safety thing. Now, under the circumstances of it, whether it's like C8 or they go, oh, we need to do something about it. Right. Government can protect you, but also remember the idea. The government can also use it to beat you over the head later on.
No, the government loves me and I trust everything it does.
You are.
By the way, Salter, it's so sad to see what's going on to the UK, and the only reason why it's happening, they got a majority mandate, which is disgusting. It's the worst thing that can happen in systems like Canada and the UK. If you got a majority, whoever is not in power is at a massive disadvantage, and whoever is in power can abuse of anything they want. So yeah, that's why the UK is down the drain, and it's a no-fly zone for me. I don't want to be in jail for my opinion.
Now, UK, bear in mind, has been an in-stage liberalism for a while. Like, they have their own version of it. In-stage liberalism for them has been a politically correct culture nanny state for nearly 10 years. They are the ones who invented politically correct culture.
Yeah.
Now, as I told you before, Sorter kind of knows about it. They pushed this stuff, and it's just turned out to bite them in the ass. Now, in reality, it also, under these policies of being politically correct, they created a two-tier justice system.
And we have the same two-tier justice system, so let's play more of that committee to hear about that guy that tries to defend his draconian law.
I've always stated that privacy is not an obstacle to public interest. It's not an obstacle to national security or to strong economy. But we need to make sure that by protecting national security, we're not doing so at the expense of privacy. And so in cases like this, what I said to the committee was that we needed to put in the legislation a criterion on necessity and proportionality, making sure that the exercise of those powers is going to be tested from a privacy perspective to say, is this necessary? Does it achieve the result for which it's been put in place? And is it proportional? So that's the substantive element. And you mentioned secrecy. In certain instances, secrecy is necessary, but it should be challenged, and there should be ways for some reports to be made to appropriate authorities. It doesn't have to be necessarily to make it public, but reports to my office, reports to a national committee of parliamentarians, or other means.
And so in your review of this proposed legislation, does it check all of those boxes?
Well, I will be waiting to testify on C8 when called, and we're reviewing that very, very carefully. But there is, I think, more to be done in terms of the reporting mechanism and the necessity and proportionality.
I would say for sure that there's more to be done. This bill proposes to let the government secretly cut a Canadian's phone or internet service, and the cabinet minister would have the power to issue the order, would prohibit that the existence of the order to cut that service, prohibit its revelation, and that the order even existed, which would, of course, eliminate the ability for anyone, including you, in your role as commissioner, to have any oversight whatsoever. Isn't this a direct circumvention of the act over which your mandate is concerned?
Well, that's why, again, to make sure that we're not making more difficult.
There's a glitch right now. I don't know what's going on with that. So 526.
Raise rights and to protect privacy, reporting to appropriate authority, even if done in a confidential manner.
So basically, this law is supposed to make it easier for the government to figure out who the hell you are, so they can target you with all kind of spyware. Yes and no. So it grants them the power to shut you down. Like they will go to Bell or whatever the provider is, and they will ask for information. But like if they do have your information, they will just enter the information and you're shut down.
Well, so basically Canada doesn't have, like in the US, FISA courts and other stuff.
This is why I was such a big opponent against the Safety Act. You're right, Dan. It's so dangerous. We don't want that. I don't care if it's Biden or Trump in office. No one government power should be able to spy on every single thing you do. That's true. I agree 100%. We are not
when
China.
Snowden came out, or is that his name? When he showed that the FBI was spying on people with the cameras or whatever.
Yeah,
the guy who's in Russia. Yeah.
No, Snowden. Oh, look, Snowden is not the hero you think he is. But
I didn't say he was a hero. I didn't say that at all.
Okay.
Make me address
the joke. Let me address this. The idea that if you go back in the U.S., we save spying and other stuff like this for extreme circumstances.
Yeah, but they were spying on regular women and stuff like that. Is what
yes.
I watched the old documentary. Yeah.
Yeah, Snowden is also if he stepped foot back in the U.S., if he wasn't given immunity, he stole documents from the
NSA. I think the NSA has the power when it's a terrorist cell, but I don't think it's really aimed at specific individual without due process. I think it's more like when they represent a threat, like they're linked to a terrorist cell or some kind of stuff like that.
That's okay. The true fact.
Well, there was a woman in space spying on her own wife from space.
Rest in peace.
All right. No,
I like the beard.
Okay, think of it this way.
Mm.
The NSA has always had, the government has always had the way to spy on anybody. NSA post the Patriot Act in order to prevent
What is it?
terrorist
I forgot what it was.
activities.
Yeah.
Did prevent it, but they also, because Snowden gets deemed a hero, they makes it out that the government was spying on everybody. They would just look up random Joe Blow and go after him. No, they have the ability to tap into phone lines, but if it comes out and it's used against you, it's deemed illegal or thrown out of court. So most of that was deemed garbage. Now, when our government asked to spy on somebody who's a criminal,
Like you criminal.
So I will also say this to Den of Tim's. With C8, they don't even need a warrant. That's the most draconian and scary thing about it. They don't even need a warrant for such action.
Yeah.
So they just want to trample of the Charter of Right we have here.
Is something that I recommend, making sure that there is ability for my office to be aware of it, to be able to raise questions. In some instances, a report to Parliament is appropriate, a report to committee is appropriate. And so this should be part of the discussion and the assessment to say, what type of reporting is there? Is it enough? But certainly in my view,
In his view, it's not enough direct.
there should be confidential reporting to some authority who would be able to raise questions about it.
Currently, that doesn't exist in the legislation. What you're describing, what you describe as essential, is not included in the legislation. Bill C8 lets a minister compel data without judicial oversight. So this also creates a risk of a parallel system where Canadians' personal information, their personal data, can be seized in secret, again, with no redress by individual Canadians or by your office. Isn't this antithetical to the type of system that your office has been designed to protect?
Well, if my office is not aware of something happening, of course, we can't raise questions about it. We can't assist Canadians. And so I think, again, there will be instances where making something known to the public may not be appropriate, but we should challenge a claim to absolute secrecy. We should make sure that there's appropriate reporting to the appropriate authorities and that there is an appropriate means to raise questions.
Right. Of course, if your office doesn't know that the law is being broken, then I guess the government's contention is that they haven't broken the law. Do you think that a vague standard like, quote, any threat, which is the term used in the legislation, undermines safeguards in the Privacy Act, such as the requirement that collection or use must be necessary, proportionate, and authorized by law?
Well, we've advocated in the past, and as I say, I expect to be called specifically on this bill to address it, but as a general proposition, I recommend a necessity and proportionality to be in the legislation, made explicit, so that there's a strong test. Yeah.
The specific tools that law enforcement might require.
I cannot stand that MP. Right now, that member of parliament, I've seen her in so many committee and such. I cannot stand her. She is off. She sounds like the most awful Karen there is. That will cancel people just because she is far left and she cannot stand someone that is not far left like her. I cannot stand her. She has powers. She is a secretary. She is basically a minister. It's so awful. I despise that MP. Probably as much as I despise Carney. That's all bad.
That's a lot. Then.
Do you have concerns about timeliness? Do you have concerns about national security and how these interface with the privacy regime? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Butthole mouth.
Well, it's important for privacy authorities and national security authorities to talk to one another, to work together. So we work closely with NSIRA, National Security Intelligence Agency. And one of my goals is that we're not at cross purposes. So I don't want privacy to stand in the way of national security or law enforcement.
Because I want draconian power. I don't want privacy because I'm a liberal, right? The Charter of Right. What's that? What's that? I love all these people are really trying to imply that having any sort of privacy is a giant security risk to the
Yeah,
government.
they haven't either.
These are liberals, folks. This is where we are at in Canada right now.
You should have seen, heard them the way they were talking about guns and stuff. Gosh.
And that's why we're working very closely with a number of bodies, competition authorities, copyright, but also FinTrack. So in terms of money laundering, financial crimes.
Based on his name, he's probably from Quebec.
We work very closely with them and Department of Finance to create more opportunities for banks to share information, to detect fraudulent and modern slavery types fraud and terrorism financing, but subjecting it to codes of practice that are reviewed by my office. So in that sense, there is protection of privacy. There is a demonstration that the privacy aspect is considered, but at the same time, we're allowing the authorities to have the tools that they need.
You read my mind in terms of where I was headed, which was actually around the uptick that we're seeing in.
Because these are the liberals and they tiptoe to make sure their own law doesn't look so bad.
Because it's not really explaining to me what kind of tools are they talking about. No, what they're talking about.
That's the point. They give word salad, so you're like, oh, they know what they're doing. But like, they do. They are nefarious people.
So the problem is, right, because what sort of talking about, when you think of what liberals do, classic liberalism as an art form has probably been dead for the last 15 to 20 years. And to address like Tim's thing, right? So the idea, when you give a government power, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And just because you got friends in the military who will tell you have little green men underneath your sink, or there's conspiracy theories. That's not always the case. But for the most part, power in any kind of law can be put into place to actually protect something if you have to protect it.
Protect the children.
I need the children. I need to be protected.
So if you do not have, so parts of the Patriot Act just do not allow you a court to just go demon, no matter what little green men underneath the sink tell you. All right?
I've heard of green men under the sink. I don't know what you're referencing. What do you mean by green men under the sink?
It's a phrase. Just because the phrase somebody phrases, I've seen misinformation on the Patriot Act for 20 years.
You're old.
And it's never fucking amounted to a damn thing. The thing is, yes, the government has always had broad-reaching powers. Every government has broad-reaching powers. Some can deal with terrorism. Now, the problem comes if they use said power illegally. And that's when you step in. Because half the people who are in the current military should be court-martialed.
Why? Wait, why? What? Why?
Why?
Yeah, why?
Because power. Because government.
No. Because now be thankful. In the military is supposed to be an institution in the United States. We've had a lot of generals. We've had a lot of people breaking laws. They should have been straight court-martialed over the last 20 years. But now they are protected. But they serve the right powers. Just because
Online
one
fraud.
government... There's a whole thing, by the way, and I really don't. Like, just because someone in the military tells you, did you know the military, we have like secret moon bases too? Did Thames get told that as well?
I'm not surprised. So let's.
You two don't fight. You two. Yeah. Okay.
Online scams and how personal privacy is actually being misused and abused. And are there ways that we can do a better job of actually trying to crack down on the illicit distribution of personal information that's allowing bad actors to access personal information?
I hate that word, bad actors.
Well, it is this collaboration between all players. So I work collaboratively with my colleagues, the other privacy commissioners, but also with cybersecurity experts in Canada and around the world. So we need to bring all of this together.
And I will also add this. We already have laws against pirates and hacking, and if we just enforce them and jail hackers that endanger the platforms, why do we need these draconian BS to take someone off the internet like that permanently? It's just nasty. You cannot excuse it.
Now, the problem is, right, remember I told you about the no-fly list? The government can enforce a no-fly list, and there's pretty much nobody. Once you're on the no-fly list, you can kind of get off of it after a very long while, but it's a very tough process to get off of it. Now, that being said, you have basically the idea is, I have a feeling that Canada for years probably hasn't had a good structure in its mindset to deal with what they view as terrorist cells or something.
When are you going to let me visit Canada, Multi?
Huh?
When are you going to let me visit Canada?
Maybe right now or soon, because you see, if the Liberals get a majority, you don't want to go anywhere near Canada. If they get a majority eventually, like, you don't want to go anywhere near Canada.
So together to say what are the best practices, what are the challenges, how do we do it by building privacy in the design, but building security in the design. So I think cyber breaches is a great example where
but we already have laws for that.
It's a privacy issue. So we need to work together to make sure that we have the tools that we need. We're not doing things at the expense of privacy. We're not doing things at the expense of security.
Commissioner, the charter jurisprudence based upon the Supreme Court's 2014 Spencer decision and the more recent 2024 Bykovitz decision is clear. Access to personal data requires prior judicial authorization, correct?
Yes.
No.
Yes, those were the findings of the court.
Yes,
okay, and looking at the Bykovitz decision, the court confirmed that subscriber data is, quote, the key to unlocking a person's identity and online activity, and based upon that, the court affirmed that even IP addresses attract a reasonable expectation of privacy and therefore cannot be obtained without a warrant, correct?
Well, that was a finding in that case. Again, the argument was this information is not specific enough, so we can ask and obtain it. And in the court really found that we can draw so much about individuals with these types of data points, and so in that case found that a warrant was required.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And to satisfy, in order to obtain a warrant or a production order in this type of context, the standard that would have to be met is reasonable belief. Is that correct?
Reasonable belief.
There's some instances where under the law it would be reasonable suspicion. So I think that is where some of my recommendations are, to the effect that when we're talking about sensitive information, it should be reasonable belief. We should have a more rigorous standard to assess that.
Okay. So
it means
with that in mind,
it's so vague. It can
I
mean
know.
anything.
Well,
And
I
that's the
believe that
point.
you are hacking the government, and then I just come after you. Like, that's
Yeah.
what do you mean?
This is
No,
draconian
princess.
stuff here. We are entering like 1984 realm.
Oh, my pen.
So
I
there,
want
you've
to
had the
ask you some
laws to deal with it, because prior to this, because if you go back to the thing with the truckers, which was mostly peaceful protests,
It was the Emergency Act they used.
They used the Emergency Act, and then they froze their assets as well.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to be mean to the other guy, but the idea is, in an improper hands, a government,
All the honking still must have been crazy though for you guys. Like, listen to all the
they
honking.
can basically, because there were actually people who got blocked by the truckers, and they're like, "Oh, go home." But then afterwards, they're like, "Oh shit, they were actually fighting for something." But then there's also the people who were had their entire lives ruined when they tried to say, "We're supposed to have rights. We're supposed to have this." But under in-stage liberalism, one of the first things, now I'm not saying for a true 1984 society, which Canada is closer,
I still haven't read that yet.
you need thought crimes, you need newspeak, you need a whole entire regime and other people, common people, to support it. Canada meets some of those requirements, but 1984 is just a concept. Now, when you have to slot the stuff into place and make it work, sure.
Slot stuff in place, yeah.
So the idea is, if they're asking for confirmation, this man is illegally hacking or a terrorist against the state or is plotting an attack, can I shut down his stuff or their stuff?
Yes.
You should.
Put me in control. I want to be the boss.
You basically should, right, Multi?
Yeah,
You're
and
trying
we
to
already
bring-
have laws like that. So
The question is...
And you need a warrant as well.
You should.
Always a warrant for that kind of
I'm going to
crap.
warrant you. Yeah.
Or your pronoun can't stop, won't stop. I think that's dragon pronouns. I'm joking, dragon. I like inside.
Questions about parts 14 and 15 of the Liberal government's Bill C-2, buried within the so-called Strong Borders Act, are
That was deleted,
sweeping new
like,
powers to government agencies to demand internet subscriber data. For example, Section 487.0121 of the Criminal Code, the proposed section, would allow police and CSIS officers to demand customer information from any company providing public services, including banks, telecoms, and social media, on a mere suspicion without judicial authorization. Have I got that right?
Which is a police state.
So, in terms of understanding the implications of what that section would enable law enforcement to do, law enforcement, for example, could compel a bank without a warrant to reveal whether an individual is a client of a bank, how long they've been a client for, where they have accessed banking services, and provide the name of any person who has provided services to that individual. Is that fair?
I don't have the section in front of me, but that sounds right.
And it would provide warrantless access to subscriber data, including IP addresses.
Again,
Right?
sounds right.
That sounds right. And so it would seem to me that that completely eviscerates the standards set out in Spencer and in Bajkowicz, right?
Well, it modifies it. Parliament can do that. The question is it necessary and appropriate? And so when we look at this, we ask questions about why is it suspicion and not belief? Is it rigorous enough? Is there enough reporting? These types of questions.
That's so weird, man.
But it
What do you mean?
raises serious privacy implications, does it not?
It has privacy implications. You're making it easier to obtain the data.
And do you have any concerns about that?
Well, again, I'm and giving in advance the testimony
Word
that I'm going to be
He
giving
probably
to the
doesn't have any
committee when
concerns
called
because he
on
has
that
to worry about
specific
himself.
bill. But certainly, once what we've seen so far is we would have preference in it being reasonable belief as opposed to reasonable suspicion in some of those aspects because of the sensitivity of information. And so there are areas where the standard, in my view, should be higher.
And this would, and the standard would be higher in your view in this context.
Standard of reasonable belief as opposed to reasonable suspicion.
Well, and what about the ability for law enforcement to access sensitive personal information? I think you would concede the information that we're talking about here is sensitive personal information. You'd agree with that?
In many cases, it will be. In some cases, it may not be. But my point is, if we're talking about that sensitive information, the threshold should be higher. There is appropriate places for suspicion, but reasonable belief when we're talking about sensitive information is critical.
You know, it's funny because you bring this up, and this is his party that brought this bill forward. So he even himself admits there's something wrong with it, but that's after he got questioned on it. So it's like he did something bad, and then he needs to apologize. It's kind of funny. That guy is my second most hated non-Carney guy. I cannot stand this guy. So there was a ethic committee where they were criticizing Carney 103 conflict of interest, and this guy was like standing up and saying, "Why are we wasting time with it?" It's like, but buddy, that Carney guy take any decision that will make him rich. Don't you see there's something wrong? But no, let's just bury our head in the sand. They need to realize
because they're benefiting off it. They have to be. Yeah.
And to say something right, like it goes over people's heads. People forget for a totalitarian regime to rise to power and prominence in any nation is you need a collapse over a period. Germany was in, let's just take the idea. The Germans were an empire. They started arguably or played a part in to basically talk about they lost the war. They had reparations and other stuff put against them. Economic stuff caused the collapse of their economy. Social strife.
Canada economy is collapsing because
so
of
you
this
have the rise of so you have the rise of various political. You also had inflation rise through the roof. You had to take basically a lot of money to pay for stuff. Now, in reality, everyone who goes, "Oh, that's just how Hitler gained power," you failed your history class right there. If you never understood why Weimar Germany, because they thought they could print their way out of debt.
And Canada is hitting the same path. You're laughing, but that's true.
I don't know.
Exactly
I'm not laughing about that. I'm laughing at it just because you're just like you're nothing. It's not that. Yes, it's a goddamn. I'm Princess Tiara.
As the chair of the global organization, could you compare Canada to the rest of the world, where we are as a private commissioner or our legislation?
Indian.
Thank you. So I think Canada is extremely respected around the world, and that was part of my election in that role. And so I think that we are very much a leader in that space, and we punch above our weight, and we want to do that. But I will flag that compared to other parts of the world, the fact that my office does not have the power to issue orders and to levy fines, that's an area where we are not as good as the rest of the world. That's a quick fix that we can improve
so you want
to raise the level of Canadian privacy law to what's around the world.
To control people.
So this guy, so he is of the persuasion that the end-stage liberalist
He's
wants the
probably
power.
Arabic, buddy.
He wants to. No, he wants. So this guy's position for arguing for tighter controls and regulations. If I'm listening, when I heard this and I'm listening, he wants to. What he has as power doesn't deem to control or regulate the people he thinks need to be regulated. Now, that is secret language, or he's probably so far off into liberal land or liberalism.
Liberal land. I don't know liberal land.
The idea of end-stage liberalism is they don't like it's a way to deal with the opposition, but it's a step right before you do a ministry of truth / that power that you have. Let's say a candidate has the power to run against any prime minister, anybody in power. They can be shut down and kicked off because of that power. That's a state right before something becomes a banana republic or flips over.
What is a banana republic? What does that mean? I don't even know what that means.
It's a communist country.
Banana republic, basically, or things.
It's a communist country like China.
That being said, things like privacy by design, our strong privacy culture, our strong collaboration culture, I think this is something that we can bring to the world, and that's going to be part of my goals in this role.
I'll show you my goals.
So we are leaders in the world overall, but why do you think it's important that you would have the authority to lay fines? I just wanted to know your viewpoint.
Well, I think it's important because if we want organizations to build privacy in the design, we want privacy to invest money and time in building those things, we need to give the incentive for them to do that. It's hard for a CEO and for a board of directors to say, we're going to spend millions of dollars when there's absolutely no risk and no financial consequence if they don't. It becomes something that feels like a nice to do, not something that you must do. So that's why this authority is important, and it's certainly around the world, those risks, they exist for other jurisdictions. They don't exist here. That being said, I'm going to continue to use the tools that I have, including making reports public, including calling out organizations. But I think those two powers, they would make the system faster, less expensive, more transparent, and more effective.
June, you announced that you would like to have a youth wing of your group. Why is it that important, and is it going to incur additional expenses to your office?
I didn't hear the end of your question.
We're over time. I'm going to give Mr. Saini one more chance to ask the question, but I need a very quick response, Mr. Dufresne.
In June, you have asked for the creation of the Office of the
because basically they have turned to speak, and now for the last few minutes it was the liberals only, and since it's committee, we need to hear about the conservative take.
No, he's slow. That's what I was just saying. He's slow. So that's what.
Well, they have.
That's also a liberal strategy. Make it slower so you pretend you're saying something.
yeah. Or talk really fast like your destiny.
No, actually, like in Congress, right? We have Congress or the Senate. They have the ability to. During a debate, they have the time allotment to speak. Now, if they go a little over, they can clarify a question. It happens a lot It happens a lot. People go over speaking time. But
Private Commissioner for Youth, Canada Youth Advisory Board. why is it important, and is it going to incur additional expenses to your office?
Not significantly, no, and it's important because we need to hear the voice of youth. Children's privacy is one of my priorities. I need their perspective. I need to understand their realities, and that's what this council is going to give me.
Okay. Without meaningful limits, bills like C8, and specifically Bill C8, can hand the government secret, warrantless powers over Canadians' communications. This is a serious setback for privacy. It's also a serious setback for democracy. With no requirement for privacy impact assessments before these laws or regulations are passed, and with the serious implications that they have on Canadians' privacy, isn't Parliament simply being asked to grant sweeping powers of surveillance to the government without a formal review by the body, by the commissioner that Canadians, that Parliament has asked to do that very thing?
Thank you for the question. In fact, privacy impact assessment is something that Treasury Board directive requires government departments to do, but it's not a legal obligation in the Privacy Act. And this is one of the recommendations that I have made to Parliament, and I continue to make. It should be an obligation. There should be the opportunity for my office to give input before the fact when there's a major change, including legislation. So it's something to manage. There's cabinet confidences to be considered, but I would agree that that opportunity would be important.
And so you haven't had that opportunity with Bill C8 and Bill C2?
We're not consulted on the specific pieces of legislation before they're tabled. We have exchanges often after with officials, and they're good exchanges. But I think earlier consultation would make our feedback more meaningful, and our feedback would happen before it's tabled.
I don't think I have a tremendous amount of time left, but to continue to preempt your appearance on Bill C8 at another committee, do you have a particular amendment or guardrail that you'd like to see included in that bill before it comes out of committee?
Not specifically at this stage, but I'll just repeat. Necessity and proportionality, strict criteria for the exercise of powers, and appropriate transparency and reporting mechanisms. These are the things that we're looking for.
No, that noise.
So, it's funny how the Conservatives are like, what's the guardrail? What protects the citizen? Nothing. Nothing.
Yeah.
The liberal way. And they pretend they are the party of the Charter of Right. Let's get into the final video for tonight.
Let's go.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today with heavy concerns about Bill C8, a law presented as a measure to secure Canada's telecommunications and critical infrastructure. I think that we can all agree that cybersecurity is very, very important. Our informational networks are the lifeblood of our economic, education, health systems, and daily lives. Protecting this critical infrastructure is essential. But, Mr. Speaker, without liberty, there can be no security. As such, my speech today will focus on how Bill C8 impacts on individual liberties of the average Canadians. Bill C8 grants the federal government sweeping powers. It allows the Minister of Industry, with the direction from Cabinet, to order telecommunications service providers like Rogers, TELUS, and Bell to refrain from action, to remove equipment, to prohibit certain services, and in extreme cases to suspend or terminate services to even individual users. While Bill C8's intention is to focus on service providers, it indirectly encroaches on the fundamental freedoms of Canadians by failing to carve out an exemption for individual Canadians who rely on the internet and telecommunications to work, to travel, to communicate, to engage in commerce and banking, and connect in their virtual communities. Mr. Speaker, consider what that means in practical terms. In today's world, losing access to telecommunications or the internet is not just a minor inconvenience. It is a form of isolation. It can it can prevent someone from working, from learning, from paying bills, from accessing health care, and
A lot of
participating in
things. You
civic
need
life.
it. Yeah, some of them.
It is, in essence, a digital prison. And here is the gravest concern about C8. It contains provisions of secrecy and non-disclosure. A person whose internet is cut off may not know why their services were terminated. They may not know the evidence against them. They may not have a meaningful opportunity to defend themselves. A Canadian could be trapped in a digital prison with no way to challenge it. Bill C8, therefore, breaches fundamental guarantees under the Charter of Rights. Mr. Speaker, this strikes at the heart of our Constitution. Section 7 of the Charter guarantees that everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of the persons, and that right is not to be deprived thereof except in accordance with the principles of fundamental justice. Fundamental justice includes knowing the case against you and having a fair opportunity to defend yourself. Bill C8, as it stands, allows the government to deprive individuals of essential services without ever seeing the evidence, which is a profound breach of these principles. Section 8 of the Charter, which protects against unreasonable search and seizure, is also engaged. The bill also allows the government to collect private information without consent with minimal safeguards. This combination of secret orders and the lack of disclosure creates a scenario where Canadian privacy and liberty are deeply at risk. Even if national security is invoked, Section 1 of the Charter requires that limitations on rights be proportionate and necessary and minimally impairing. Secret orders, broad powers, and no avenues for defense fail this test. Canadians should not have to surrender their rights to remain secure.
It's kind of funny because the Liberals, they want you to surrender everything. This is exactly what's going on. Any thought on what she said so far, Miss Sparkle?
No, that isn't she fighting for for it not to happen, right?
Yeah,
she's basically repeating herself as last time. Yeah, she's basically repeating herself as last time. So yeah, I agree with her. Like, it's not right. Yeah.
Any thoughts, Dragon, on the opposition?
You expect you actually have. She does have the point. You do have this, but the thing about this is as well. So like the prior guy that you see who's testifying, he's of the belief from his side that his regulatorial power potentially doesn't go far enough. Conservatives still understand there's a rule of law versus it's not a pure intent to abuse and disobey it. It's the concept of it can be misused. But there's also the idea that she does understand there's a lot of people, they only have digital. Now, in scary language, yes, they can do it. But it should be stripped from the law and should never be taken out of the courts to suspend somebody's stuff. The problem is, let's assume it's a first reading. Yes, it is concerning, and if it violates the Charter or freedoms, which I'm pretty sure they can find a way to justify it should exist. No offense.
And freedom can coexist. The government can both defend our telecommunications networks and protect the rights and freedoms of all Canadians. Bill C8 may secure networks, but as it stands, it risks imprisoning citizens digitally and denying them fundamental justice. In so doing, it undermines the very freedoms that we seek to protect. Let us not mistake security for
Nice to
liberty.
see you, Tim.
Let us not trade
Sorry
our
for being
rights
nasty
of Canadians
to
for a
that.
false sense of protection.
You're probably a fine person.
Mr. Speaker,
But
let
you
me
had
give you
a
a
nice sleep
concrete
for me
example
too.
of how Bill C-8 could affect an ordinary Canadian. Imagine Sarah, a citizen, frustrated with the government program that she believes was mismanaged and that was corrupt. In her frustration, she posts online, threatening to expose government corruption. She threatens to reveal secret information she has collected about the program. The government views her post as a threat to telecommunication system, and so quietly issues an order under Bill C-8. Her internet provider receives the direction to shut down her internet and phone services.
And that's a law of a police state if they do that.
Court order. The same provider is legally forbidden from disclosing that reasons why Sarah's internet was suspended. If the provider
That's why I think that's the part of the bill that's weird. If you don't have any legal recourse to know why you're blocked from getting phone service,
her mail, her bank account, or work portal. Her social media accounts are frozen. She cannot contact her friends, family, and colleagues. She has been cut off entirely from the digital world, and she has no idea why. This is a system of double secrecy. The government order is hidden, and the provider is prohibited from telling her anything. Sarah cannot see the evidence against her. Sarah cannot ask questions, and she has no way of defending herself. She is effectively trapped in a digital prison, isolated, powerless, and silenced. Over the following days, the impact deepens. Sarah cannot pay her bills, participate in remote work, access healthcare portals, or communicate with anyone. Eventually, she finds out that the government is behind this, so she attempts to challenge the order, only to hear that any judicial review may involve secret evidence that she cannot see. The provider has the information, but under Bill C-8, they are not allowed to share it. Every attempt to assert her rights is blocked. She is not merely inconvenienced, she is entirely cut off with no meaningful recourse.
In the meantime, we got the Liberals. They keep praising they are the party of the Charter of Rights. Let me laugh. They are nutcases.
Mr. Speaker, this
I mean, the issue itself is it just sets up a bad precedent. They should have known that this is bad because in an era, let's assume that everyone has a cell phone and that while this is a very hyperbolic, like, what if, it's not far-fetched from precedent. Like, they did it with the truckers. Like, the truckers got pretty much railroaded by the courts.
They spent some time in jail.
The leaders, when they tried to speak out, were silenced. So you're talking, it's not like there's not a precedence. Now, as I said, in-stage liberalism needs a mechanism of reporting. Now, hypothetically, even if this is basically stripped out of the bill and redone, it wouldn't surprise me if they try to put it in another form, if that makes sense.
Yes,
because
it does.
Basically, the way they worded it is near hyperbolic and draconian. Now, they were probably, I'm not saying hypothetically hoping no one reads it. There is laws as intended and laws as written. Laws as intended and laws as written. And there's also the way it can be put into place. A lot of that provision is just a secret order from somebody because the case she uses specifically is what I would say could be used against any politician running against somebody in power. The problem is they're not going to think of this as wrong. If this was to come across anywhere in the United States, a state wanted to pass this would be struck down because we would know not because we don't trust our government. This is silencing somebody on the grounds of just potentially a belief. And the fact alone, too, you guys are closer to the digital society than America.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, you use it for your cards. You use it for your banking. You use it for shopping.
As it stands. It illustrates why BC8 secrecy and non-disclosure provisions are so dangerous to individuals. You may say that this would never happen. The government no doubt will insist the intent of the bill is clear. But why should Canadians trust them? We must take the bill at face value. We must rely on what the text explicitly sets out in the law. Otherwise, the law intended to protect telecommunications infrastructure could easily be weaponized by any government against ordinary citizens. Citizens most at risk
Hence,
are
I said,
like
laws
me,
written and
those
laws
who
interpreted.
publicly and loudly express dissent, challenge orthodoxy, or raise uncomfortable truths. These citizens most active in civil society are most at risk of being cut off, penalized, and isolated without ever knowing why. For these reasons, Bill C-8 undermines the principles of fundamental justice in the Charter as it stands. Security in this context can be a pretext for control, while transparency and liberty are sacrificed. Mr. Speaker, Sarah's story is not just hypothetical. It is a warning. Bill C-8 risks turning ordinary Canadians into prisoners of secrecy, silence without cause, and stripped of their most basic rights. We can secure our networks without the risk of trapping innocent citizens in a digital prison, and without stripping them of the ability to defend themselves. This can be done. We can provide clear exemptions in the legislation for individual users, it should be a part of what we discuss at committee. These are practical, reasonable measures that governments could adopt. Mr. Speaker, we owe it to all Canadians to do everything in our power to elect leaders that will not be silenced, that will protect their security and will guard their freedoms, because freedom without security in itself is a cage.
There we go. Now they will try to defend it.
With the honourable member from South Hespeler. Thank you.
I thank the member for indicating to the chair that she was splitting her time. The honourable parliamentary secretary, the government house leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm not sure. I believe the member is going to be. I'm not too sure if she's in support of the legislation, to be honest. It comes across as she has some concerns for individuals like Sarah. I think the minister has been fairly clear as we go through this legislation. C8 is important for many different reasons. The one that I just recently highlighted was the fact of the consumer, of our economy, and we need to protect through cybersecurity. It is not an option for government to do it. It's something that has to be done. And I'm wondering if the member would not at the very least agree cybersecurity to protect the Canadian economy is absolutely critical, and we need to have the legislation, and maybe it's just a question of having some amendments that would address some of the concerns that the member has put forward.
The honourable member for Haldeman Norfolk.
I've read through it. How does it protect cybersecurity?
Yes, I want all Canadians to know that cybersecurity is an extremely important thing in this digital era. It is very important for the government to take this seriously, and this bill is.
If you guys don't even like your guys' like things don't even recording any of the cyber
bill that as a legislature
crimes or
I
anything.
see, and as a trained lawyer, that I must.
Well, I mean, Biden.
Because I tried to look it up. I tried to look it up to see what Canada's cyber crimes are like, and they don't track it. They don't have it. They don't
Questions and
tracked.
comments?
Well,
Yes,
it's not like
all
the
time.
U.S.
The
We
honourable
have
member for
entire
Edmonton
divisions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker,
Okay.
and congratulations to my colleague for such a wonderful speech highlighting an important issue.
It's
There's
my
a lot of
PJs, I don't
concerns
know
we hear
anything
from
else on it.
Canadians about Bill C-8. Some of them she included in her speech. Maybe she need to shed the light again on those concerns. That would be great.
Member.
Thank you to my honourable friend for the question. I think the most important issue of this bill is we recognize that there are times when our telecommunications infrastructure is threatened. And in those instances, the government must act expeditiously to minimize and to curtail that threat. However, when these provisions can seep over into the realm of ordinary citizens, and then just the example I gave of Sarah, where her entire life is unraveled because of this legislation. I do not believe that this should have been the intent of this legislation. And so we really need to look at the impact of this legislation on ordinary individuals, because the average Canadian needs their telecommunications in order to facilitate every aspect of their life.
Questions and
Well, I
comments?
think
Just sorry
it's
for
up
more
to you that
time.
you
The
guys can't
Honourable
figure out how to
Parliamentary
fix it.
Secretary to the
They do
Minister
take it away
of
from you, right?
Canadian Identity and
Yeah.
Culture.
Thank you. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for their speech. Now, I just want to come back on one point. You were saying it's important for cybersecurity, and you put the emphasis on Sarah's story, and of course, private life should be protected. But what are the advantages for the private citizens, and are you going to work with us in committee?
Oh, I thought you just said the F word. I don't know why.
When
Well,
in fact
they
you
were
said
speaking
vous,
French.
It is as if
Yeah,
you're
no, it's
addressing
fuck.
directly
Okay.
to the other member.
Thank my honourable friend for the question. The advantages to private citizens, security is always an advantage, but security cannot come at the expense of liberty. We have the Charter of Rights in
She speaks
place,
really good.
and
I
it must be
and I like that
respected.
she reads
There are a
her.
number
She
of
keeps
provisions.
her
Section
notes of her.
11
She's
and
the one that
Section
actually reads
12
from like notes and
of
stuff.
Bill
Yeah.
Is she like she's a conservative, right? Yeah.
Section 7
Yeah.
of the Charter, because
But
it's
she
a
always has got
deprivation of our
work
essential
on her nose
services
done.
without procedural fairness.
She always get their
Section
nose
And
smaller.
she's
like
also
one.
a trained lawyer.
also infringe
Oh,
on
that's why.
Section
Yeah, I can
8
see
of the
that.
Charter
Totally see that. Yeah.
because it's a deprivation of privacy against unreasonable search and seizure. Section 11, 14, 16, 18, and 19 also infringe Canadian liberties because it's a deprivation of Section 1 justifiable limits and the proportionality of any legislation upon
He speaks
a person's,
French, don't
freedom,
you? Right,
even when
Multi?
national security
speak French,
is
right?
a
Yeah, I speak
justifiable
French, yeah.
grounds under Section 1.
How do you
So
feel about like? Yeah, it's part of it. It's what they do. It's you're being mean, Greek boy.
So I will tell you this, Andre, because now the clip is over. Quebec is always. Oh, it wasn't over.
No, no.
So, well, all it works in Canada, we got seats in Parliament. In total, it's 343 seats, and there's 78 seats in Quebec. And most of Quebec actually doesn't speak English, my friend. So they don't really have a choice to speak French in Parliament. As much as you don't like it, this is how it is. Because a lot of voters don't speak English.
You should basically. Well, the problem is
If they don't, that's what they are. That's the
English
way they are,
is. It could be like anything. English is part of our actual thing. The idea is. Okay, so I'm looking over part of it, C8 from June 18. Authorizes the governor and council to designate any service or system as vital service or a vital system. Authorizes said person.
Shut up! Not you. Sorry, not you. Sorry.
Establish classes of operators in respect of vital service or vital system. Requires designated operators to, among other things, establish, implement cybersecurity, mitigate supply chain and third-party risks, report cybercrime incidents, and comply with cybercrime security directions. Provides the information between relevant parties. And E is authorize an enforcement of the consequences. Now, that's a summary of it, which it goes into talking about how they would probably establish it. But
what? Establish
okay.
what? Oh, how to do the thing, the security thing, or what are we talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So it goes into the Bank of Canada. It goes into the Ministry of Industry. Each section. Now, in reality, is it tightening or asking for the provisions to actually enforce it? Now, amongst other things, is they do have the right to cut the people off under the Telecommunications Act. But it also they can deem something as a vital industry and basically do something. Now, in the discussion, they have different sections on it. Now, whether or not parts of this are stripped out,
Not even sure what it is you can get in trouble for. I don't even know what's considered a violation for on any of it. I don't know.
I speak out and say government sucks. Boom, no more internet.
That's actually kind of in the extreme, because I'm not saying that isn't the case.
That's the kind of stuff that will happen, trust me. So I guess this was the censorship discussion of this week. Next week, we will have the final chapter of this adventure with another video, and if I remember correctly, the other one is quite long. I'm not quite sure. I will look into it. And maybe we will only cover one next week, depending how long it is. Maybe we will cover 3 if it's shorter than what I remember. But I think that one is a huge one. So with that being said, what do you have going on your end of the internet? A dragon.
Probably have something with Sorter on Sunday if nothing happens. I have my other part 2 from the other. I just have my normal stuff, either games going on and just whatever.
The Greek boy's gonna start stalking him now.
What about you, Sparkle?
I don't know. I get invited. It's whenever I get invited. I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. I don't honestly know.
That's tragic.
Tragic.
That's tragic.
So
yeah, that's
mean.
a
Why?
tragedy.
At least I know you always let me on.
Yeah,
I did. I haven't showed you yet, but I made you. I did an AI with your face. I made it look like Grand Theft Auto art. So I'm gonna send it to you later. Yeah, I did that.
That's
you look
cool.
adorable. You're all
Cannot
smiling
wait.
too. I got you a screenshot of you smiling too, so it's perfect. Yeah.
Amazing.
I'll send it to you later. Yeah, amazing.
And on my end of the internet, Monday, I will talk about Black Phone 1 and Black Phone 2. Amazing 2 movies. Tuesday, we talk about James Bond, Die Another Day, which is a terrible movie, and The World Is Not Enough, a very underrated one. Wednesday, I think Wednesday it's Birds of Prey. That next week is a bloodbath, I swear. Birds of Prey was such a terrible movie I despise. And next Saturday, not tomorrow, like next Saturday, we finish this adventure about censorship because it's important to talk about it because we don't want to turn into the UK. The UK sucks. It's like the worst place to be at, worse than Russia, maybe outside of the war.
Do you know that the guy who made Skippy Toilet went to jail for overmaking Skippy Toilet? Did you know that?
I didn't know.
Yeah, he did. He got put in jail because the parents complained about him making that freaking toilet guy. He was in jail for a little bit. Yeah, that's crazy, huh?
And with this, Black Phone.
Oh, Black Phone. Okay, we're talking about Black Phone. Sorry.
Is that phone doing drive-by and vent? I don't know. Wow! So racist. I like it.
They had a demon thing on the strawberry soda. Is that what's in the? And it said Black Phone on it. Is that the monster that's in the movie?
Yeah. And now we gotta end with this because people always miss the intro.
A sack of potatoes, 1 bag of potatoes. A sack of potatoes, 1 bag of potatoes. A sack of potatoes, 1 bag of potatoes.
And we are out. I like.
Potatoes. Bye.
He shows
I'm gonna pass out.
apple and he says it's potatoes.
Yeah,
That was
told
the
him
joke.
apples. Yeah.
And with this, we
Right,
are
right.
out. See you soon.